Hello, welcome to my artist talk. My name's Sarah Burns, and this artist talk is going to go into a series of works that I've been interested in the past few years, dealing with nocturnes and the night sky. I'm going to talk just a little bit about some of the science of visual perception at night, which interests me greatly and informs my art a lot. Just the mystery and sublime love of the night sky a little bit. And don't worry, I won't talk too much about that because, like, everybody knows it, right? You don't need me to tell you that. And then tiny bit of a rant about how we want to be smart about our lighting. Okay, let's get into it. So, maybe about 5 years ago, I started really like diving into painting nocturnes. Maybe it's been a little bit longer. I have always loved nocturne paintings. And of course, I've always loved the night sky. It's just so awesome. I love to go outside before bedtime and just like, it just resets my nervous system, helps me feel like, just gets me ready for rest. I feel like there's so many layers to that. And again, I'm not going to like wax poetic too long. But anyway, I've always loved nocturne paintings and I've wanted to tackle them. One of the challenges that I've had as a painter is my method is I enjoy direct observation of my subjects to be able to extract, I feel like, something very essential. So the tricky part about plein air painting at night is to be able to see the night sky, you need dark, and to be able to see your canvas, you need light. So it just doesn't really work. So the method that I've come to, which I'll show a little bit more of in a few slides, is kind of a combination of observing the night sky, remembering, like writing down notes, being like, okay, try these colors, try this, blah, blah, blah. Just like making notes at night, kind of mentally composing the picture at night, and then drawing from reference during the day. So like for both of these paintings, like I drew the shapes of the rock, the shapes of the trees during the day, but I had composed the painting at night, the night before, right? So multi-step process. And then I would like paint and then look at my painting and then look at the night sky and then go back and look at my painting in the studio and be like, okay, does this track with what I'm remembering? So that's the strategy that I've developed that gets me the results that I am happy with for the work. As an artist, science is something that is super duper interesting to me. It's actually weirdly very inspiring to me. I guess as an observational painter, I developed curiosity about the world. I never did well in science in school, but I find as an adult, as an artist, I really enjoy it and it inspires me greatly. So I'm going to share a little bit of the science that I have learned that has helped me. It's been very informative for my painting process, especially for the nocturnes. And I do want to have a caveat just to say that like this, just because it's scientifically informed doesn't mean it's the only way or the right way to paint nocturnes. As an artist, we get full permission to explore what's right for our own artwork. And that kind of goes without saying, but I feel the need to be really clear about that because I come from an art educational system, classical realism, where it was a little dogmatic about how you worked. And while I really appreciate much of what I learned from that, and I loved the discipline, I also would never want to impose that on anyone because I love art of all kinds of influences and persuasions, and definitely classical realism. I would not want the whole world to only have classical realism, okay? So I just say that with a caveat, but I think this is fun. It's cool to know the science because we have eyes and we interact with the world. And then also if it helps your art, fabulous. That's great. But if it doesn't, no problem. Okay. So, been really interested in how the eye works, how we perceive color and light, and all that good stuff. And as part of that exploration, I've had the opportunity to study the eye. So this is my little diagram of the eye. So we have the side view of the eye. Here's our like pupil, our eyeball, and light comes in here, and it bounces on cells, light receptor cells that are located on the back of our eye, and those receptor cells send a signal in to our in through the optic nerve to our brain. That little blank spot represents the optic nerve. Okay, so at the center of our vision are cells that are called cones because they're cone shaped. And those cones are sensitive to different wavelengths of light. So I always have to check. So the red wavelength is long wavelength light. Green is medium, blue is short. So if they perceive something of that color, boom, they'll send a signal. Okay. Then we also have, and those are located at the center of our vision. They need lots of light to be activated. They don't work under low light. Consequently, the rods don't work as much during strong light situations. So they're not as active. But the rods really show up under lower light situation. They're located more around the periphery of our vision, hence they're responsible for our peripheral vision. And they translate only value. They are blurrier. The information that they convey is blurrier than what the cones convey. So the cones are really responsible for our sharp, kind of detail focused vision. What's kind of wild is there's many things that are kind of wild about this. So at night, we don't actually perceive color, and that is weird. Like, so next time you are awake at nighttime, just kind of look around and see like how much color am I really seeing? And like you, because you can see some stuff at night, right? And maybe there's a street light outside and you see like a little hint of green on a tree, but it takes that's because there's enough light there that your cones are activated. But it's like if you just look around, like you're not really seeing that much color, you know? And what's kind of wild is like scientists don't really know exactly why the like night sky appears blue, because it could either be like an interaction in the brain, like further on, that's indicating blue. Could be maybe there's just enough light, is my non-scientific guess, that like maybe there's like a slight amount of cone activation. But when I've observed, I've like definitely seen like, yeah, there is blue in the night sky. It's not high chroma blue. It's not blue. It's like a less chromatic blue, more value-based blue. So I've kind of played with that, and you'll see in my paintings, like I've kind of played with like what kind of colors am I seeing? The other thing that's kind of interesting is rods are more sensitive to any light that's coming in that is green, or that wavelength, although we don't actually see the green because again, rods perceive value. So that's kind of wild. So what that means is the overall value pattern during the day is actually different from day to night. It's called the Purkinje shift. It's kind of wild. And again, this is like not important, but I think it's super interesting. So what's wild is in dim light or at nighttime, something that is blue, that we would see as blue during the day, is a lighter value than what we would see it during the day. And something that's red is a darker value than what we'd see during the day. That's kind of wild. Again, not important, but just kind of cool. What I am going to note though is just rods translate value only, and night vision is much blurrier than day vision. So those are the two things that I want to point out. The other thing is, you know how if you are watching a movie, especially like an old Western, and it's like nighttime, and there's those super strong shadows and everything's really crisp, and they have to have like enough crispness to kind of like, you know, show the gunfight or whatever. And we all know that those are like some sort of like filter thing, day for night, Hollywood type of shooting, and they always look weird and they always drive me crazy because I'm like, it just doesn't feel like night. Although, like, I'm fully willing to suspend disbelief for a story. But I just wanted to explore more how night really works because of this, like, just this challenge of depicting night, in general. Okay. So as I mentioned, my method, I talked about how my method would be, I would go out at night. When I was on vacation in Mexico, this scene of the moonrise was really inspiring to me. This was over the Sea of Cortez. That's why it's like at the ocean. And anyway, so I was just like, oh yeah, this would, like, I could just compose a painting. Like, I could see it. And so I took a photo. And of course, the photo doesn't really, I mean, a good photographer could make a great nighttime photo, of course. And I just had an iPhone. I don't really know how to use it that well. So it wasn't a great photo, but it got the information that I needed, And again, I wasn't relying on this so much for the color because the photo interprets the color differently than our eyes do. Okay, there's a lot of similarities, but there's some differences too. So what I did then was during the day, mentally I composed the picture, took the photo. During the day, I got out my canvas. I did a careful drawing of the rock. I did like some color notes on my canvas for what I remembered as like was important, the colors that I was like wanting to play with. So I put like black, blue, purple, Prussian blue, warm reflection of the moonlight on the water. Those were things that I wanted to show. So, and again, I just wanted to like try to capture what it feels like at nighttime, right? And so, so here's another photo of my setup a little bit closer. So, I knew I wanted to get that rock shape nice and clear. Here are my notes. Here's me working. And then at home, when I got home from vacation, I did some both digital color studies and physical color studies, trying to kind of like figure out little sketches of the composition and trying to decide like which color was and which. There's so many possibilities where you can play with. So I just wanted to see like what is going to be the one that I want to play with for paint. And so I went with, I made two paintings actually. I made a 12 by 12 painting from the original sketch and did kind of this one color pattern, and then a 20 by 22 inches based on the sketches and photos and based on this painting. And I kind of made some slight alterations just to sort of like play with the differences, because it's super fun to have this combination of observation mixed with memory and experimentation and the knowledge of the way the eye works. And I really tried to soften the edge of the rock so it wasn't like a super crisp transition. Like I wanted to show, and then I enjoyed like softening the moonlight, as well, to sort of just show the like nothing's like super crisp at nighttime. So then this led me to this project, where I had this 12 by 12 painting that I had made several years even before that, and I really liked this painting and it sold, and but I took and made digitally simplified it and blew it up. So it was 12 by 12, and I took this 24 by 24 canvas and I like imposed, a drawing. I don't have a picture of this, but I did like a drawing and a value study of the skull onto this, and I just started painting it. And I decided that I would take the same color schema that I was using for those full moon paintings and like put it on the skull, so as if the skull was like the full moon and it was a night sky, right? And then I just sort of was like, oh, I'll make water, like kind of like I did in the other painting. And I tried to show kind of some of the reflection of what a little bit of the skull might reflect into the water. And then I really like Orion, and so I put Orion in. I always look at that at nighttime. Just sort of playing with things. And then this little horizon line is my the scene that I see from my backyard. And after I just did this really intuitively. It's really different from where I normally work, because it's much more studio based, much more intuitive, inspiration based, and I didn't really have a strong like, oh, this is what this is about. But how it turned out to be was I realized it was the feeling. We built a backyard sauna. Here, just a second. I'm in the middle of recording something. Okay, bye. Anyway, sorry for the interruption. Anyway, so this painting turns out to just be a representation for me of the feeling I get when I do a sauna and cold plunge in my backyard at night, because it's just like you lay back in the water. It's like this incredible bliss after you've done this like wonderful hot sauna. So here's a little picture of me during the daytime. My husband built us this like wonderful sauna, and then we have this little bathtub cold plunge, and we you know, when you lay back and look up through the trees, it just is like the most endorphins, best feeling of looking at the sky. It's just like incredible, right? So and it's something that we enjoy. It's one of those like just such a like, it's like an amazing, it's always hard to get into the cold water, even if the cold water we have is like 50 degrees. It's not that cold, but once you get in, like within a couple of seconds, you go from being like, oh, brr, this is so cold, to like absolute endorphin release. And it becomes this like super peaceful experience, blissful experience for my nervous system. And as I get older, I'm like, I recognize like, that is needed. We need these things because life is stressful in the modern world. Life is stressful on planet Earth, you know, but it's also blissful and joyful. And we can carve out these little moments. And it might look like from this picture that I live in like the country, but I tell you, I live in a suburb. So I am like trying to keep my little bit of night sky in this suburb this very, very nice neighbors, but you know, normal suburb where people are like, oh, I want security and safety at night. Anyway, so now is the rant portion of the of this presentation. So science stuff is interesting to me. Listen to this Huberman Lab podcast a lot of times while I'm painting. And in the episode Toolkit for Optimizing Sleep, Andrew Huberman goes into why it's so important to avoid bright artificial light of any color in the evening at night. Because bright light stimulates wakefulness, which is essential in the morning, but damaging at night. And as I get older, sleep gets harder and harder. And so and also as a person who's endured like lots of great traumatic stress earlier in life, like I had a tendency of that cortisol thing where I was sleeping late in the morning and had a hard time falling to sleep at night. And so these little things make a huge difference for, you know, regulating my sleep rhythms. And so I do that. I get up in the morning, go straight outside, get in the sun, some sunlight in my face, and then I keep my lights low and dark and warm at night. And it really helps me. And believe me, my husband knows. He's not that sensitive. He can just like fall asleep. He'll be like, okay, good night. Bye. So I go around. If he has too many lights on at night, I'm like, what is wrong with you? It could be a little more gentle, but it is like, it strikes a nerve with me, right? So another thing that I wanted to share is not only is this lots of artificial light, strong, intense artificial light problematic for humans at nighttime, it is also really damaging to migrating birds. Light is attractive to birds, so they can waste their energy going towards it, flying around it, and it also increases their risk of collision with buildings. And apparently it's especially bad when they're low cloud ceilings or foggy weather. So if they're flying lower than they normally would, they can get like too much interacting with it. So US Fish and Wildlife says limit lights at night, especially when birds are migrating, and suggests, using low lights on the walkway instead of high street lights. Which, and I will say, if you look at like a beautifully lit, very nice neighborhood, the lighting is so much more gentle, like for like things are like classy and expensive, for lack of a better word, oftentimes are more gentle on the body. But do these things cost more money? No, they do not. I do have a lot of sympathy for feelings of safety. Of course, we want to be safe. Of course, there shouldn't, you don't want to be tripping at night. We don't want to be scared at night, but if that's something, if lighting makes you feel safe, just sort of introduce these concepts and like maybe try a little bit of warmer light on your porch light if you feel like you need to leave it on all night, or add some of those low walk lights to be able to have safety. Just something to consider. And it is very beautiful and gentle to have like nicer, more gentle lighting. We leave our porch light off at night and only turn it on if it's, if we need to go outside or if we hear something outside. And of course there are motion detector lights and stuff. So there's a lot of different options if this is something you're thinking about. From Dark Sky International, they have 5 principles for responsible outdoor lighting, which I think is really great. And this little thing can be downloaded as a postcard and printed out. So it should be useful. So light should have a purpose. Should be targeted. So it should be pointed to where the light is needed, like pointed down, and shouldn't spill over to where it's not needed. So there's never any really need for light to go up. And if, you're lighting a sign or something at night, just consider how much spillage there might be. Shouldn't be any brighter than necessary. So use the lowest amount of light that's needed. And some surfaces reflect more light than intended. So maybe that can be something you control. You should be controlled. Use it when it's only needed. I've already mentioned timers or motion detectors. Dimmed, there's all kinds of strategies. And then also you can get warmer color lights. There's lots of those available. LEDs have made this a little more complicated because apparently even warm colored LEDs lack some of the longer wavelength red lights. But there are sources for that if you're really nerdy about this kind of thing. But whatever you do to sort of like augment this is great, is super helpful for your nervous system, for animals, for moths, for birds, for other people. And that's the end of my ranting and raving. So I'm going to finish it by showing a couple of just recent landscapes that I've enjoyed doing. It all started with this one painting I made at Vesper Meadow. I was staying the night in like a wall tent, and it was when the Comet Neowise was out, and I was like, I really wanted to see it. It was kind of hard to figure out. I knew generally what direction to look. I knew that it would be out generally what time, and I really, 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 really wanted to see it. And then when I saw it, like getting up for like the 100th time in the middle of the night to go pee, I was so excited to see it. It was so beautiful, and I instantly composed a painting and sketched it out, and then used that this was my first real like nocturne that I was very happy with, and I composed it and then began the sketching process. And that has just led to more and more and more. So this, again, small painting, probably something like 12 by 16, led to this large 48 by 48 inch painting in which I used the same trees, but I imaginatively placed where the moon is. I added another comet, a different comet that I had seen. Can't even remember what that one's called. And then there was like a lineup of planets one day. I imposed Orion, and then I made up some stars, you know. And then, of course, I was like, oh, it just needs one more thing. And so I added the wolf, which I love. Just the idea of, you know, night is so sublime and magical and wonderful and a little bit dangerous and frightening. And that idea of the wolf, that wild animal who is also so much like dogs that are so familiar that we love and snuggle with, and yet they're dangerous, and you know, just all of that together just struck a chord in me. And so anyway, that is the story of that painting. And I made lots of little sketches of the another comet, Shushin Shan, which was visible I think it was last summer, maybe it was the summer before, and we went up to Mount Ashland at night to see it, and it's just like a magical time to like, it's just special, you know, like I like to go to bed early, so it's just really special to like, ooh, we're gonna go see the comet and hike up, and it's just sort of like perfect kind of date for me. So, and anyway, night holds just like awe and wonder. It's like another world within our own world. All these different animals are out, and it just is a special place of meditation and introspection and connection to the sublime, and something that like I value and treasure and want to highlight and protect. So thank you for attending my artist talk. Get outside tonight and see what you think of the night. See what new observations you can make at the nighttime. Okay, good night.